Were there really giants in the land? Tales of the Nephilim, giant beings from the Bible, have captured and mystified humanity for centuries. But just how tall were these mysterious giants? In this presentation, we delve through ancient texts, modern research, and some stunning theories to uncover the truth behind their colossal size. Is it an exaggerated myth, or more to this legend with the Nephilim than we ever could have imagined? Hang around, as the answers just might change absolutely everything you thought you knew. The origins of the Nephilim, a mystery. The Nephilim first appear in the Bible, in the Book of Genesis, precisely in Genesis 6:4. That verse is connected with a mysterious time when the sons of God took the daughters of men as wives, and their offspring became mighty men of old, men of renown. Yet who were these sons of God? And who exactly were the Nephilim? Some interpreters understand the sons of God to be fallen angels, that is, those thrown out of heaven who descended onto the earth and engendered the Nephilim through union with human women. Others think the phrase is best understood as a reference to either strong human rulers or divine beings who exercised authority over humankind. Whichever their origins, the Nephilim were described as having extraordinary physical stature and strength. The Bible doesn't provide much detail on the Nephilim themselves, but it suggests that these beings played a significant role in the moral corruption of early human society. In Genesis, the presence of the Nephilim coincides with a time of great wickedness on earth, a time that eventually led to God's decision to bring about the Great Flood. Some scholars argue that the Nephilim may have been seen as a symbol of human rebellion against divine law, representing the blending of the divine and the human, which ultimately led to chaos. By introducing the Nephilim in the story of the flood, the Bible hints at a period in history where the lines between the divine and mortal were blurred, leading to severe consequences that warranted a complete reset of the earth through the flood. But the real question is, did these giants survive the flood? And if so, where did they go? The Book of Enoch, a detailed account of the Nephilim's origins. While the Bible only gives us glimpses of the Nephilim, the Book of Enoch, an ancient text considered apocryphal by most Christian denominations, provides a far more detailed narrative. Written between the 3rd century BCE and the 1st century CE, the Book of Enoch expands on the story of the Nephilim, explaining their origins in greater detail. The Book of Enoch tells us how the Watchers, a bunch of angels with the task of observing humanity, loved human women's beauty. These angels descended to earth, took wives, and gave birth to the Nephilim. To Enoch, they were more than just taller than human beings. They were giants, whose physical height found its match in unappeasable hunger and violence. But probably the most astounding claim to find within the Book of Enoch is in the enormous size that these Nephilim are. In some translations, they claim that their height was 3,000 cubits, which equates to approximately 4,500 feet tall. Just to put that in perspective, these giants would have been tall enough to look over into cities as colossuses, towering over modern skyscrapers. But most of the versions describe it as only 300 cubits tall, an amazing 450 feet, but far more realistic than the extreme 3,000 cubits. So, were these giants really that tall? Perhaps these figures are better thought of as symbolic of the Nephilim's power and dominance, rather than their literal stature. The hyperbolic height in such ancient texts is believed by many scholars to have served the purpose of underlining just how exceptional the Nephilim were, more than men, yet less than gods. Thus, trying to make them as towering giants probably suggests what influence the Nephilim had upon human society in the eyes of these ancient writers. Meanwhile, others are for taking the numbers literally. If so, creatures like that would have been the most fearsome presence on any ancient landscape. Height alone sufficient to instill fear in one's heart. Goliath, the most famous giant in the Bible. In all the giants of the Bible, there is no more famous than that Goliath of Gath, who one day challenged the Israelites and was later defeated by young David. Still, the question goes, how tall was Goliath? The Masoretic text is the traditional Hebrew Bible, in which Goliath is described as 6 cubits and a span in height, the gigantic measurement of about 9 feet 9 inches. That would make him over more than twice the average height of ancient Israel's average man, who normally stands at 5 feet 5 inches tall. Not all sources agreed to Goliath's height. The Dead Sea Scrolls are an ancient collection of Jewish texts discovered in the middle of the 20th century that describe Goliath as only 4 cubits and a span tall, which puts him at roughly 7 feet tall. Still taller than most men, but far more modest than the figure given in the Masoretic text. Why the difference? Some scholars believe that over the centuries, scribes copying the texts may have exaggerated the height of Goliath to make the story more exciting. Others say the differences come from using units of measurement, such as the cubit, which differed in each culture. We find throughout history that exaggerating the size of an enemy in order to make them appear fearsome is not an uncommon thing. What the biblical authors may have been trying to do was underline the task at hand for David, using the supposition of Goliath's giant nature in showing the miraculous accomplishment of his triumph. In ancient narrative, size often correlated with power, so Goliath's exaggerated height would be meant to magnify the importance of the impossible victory of David. Be he 9 feet tall, 7 feet tall, or somewhere in between, one thing is sure: his remarkable height made him an object of terror and awe, and his defeat at the hand of David one of the most celebrated victories in all of biblical history. How ancient cultures measured giants, the cubit conundrum. Variations in measurements are among the most challenging aspects of determining the true height of the Nephilim and other biblical giants. The cubit is a unit of measurement in common usage in the Bible. However, since it is not standardized for all cultures, different calculations are therefore derived for height. In this era, the standard cubit was close to an 18-inch length in ancient Israel, while in Egypt the cubit was closer to 20 inches. It is these near negligible-looking discrepancies that could actually make a difference in recorded height of giants such as Goliath or the Nephilim. Using Goliath as such an example of this, he would certainly be taller if measured with the longer Egyptian cubit than if he had been measured using the Hebrew cubit. This is not unique to measurement discrepancies within the Bible. Every civilization throughout history has used various systems of measurement for height, distance, and other dimensions, which often results in confusion when trying to compare accounts of one civilization with those of another. In the case of the Nephilim, the difference between a giant standing 300 cubits tall, using a Hebrew cubit, as opposed to an Egyptian cubit, means dozens of feet of height apart. The heights of Nephilim or other giants can hardly be determined without a uniform system of measures. What we can, however, say is that whatever form these specific measuring systems took, these beings were described as phenomenally tall and powerful, domination both the landscape and inspiring both fear and awe from those who encountered them. The science. Is it possible that humans could grow that tall? Looking therefore on scientific grounds at the legend of the Nephilim described in several ancient texts, one might ask, would it ever be physically possible on any basis for humans to grow to sizes like those ascribed to the Nephilim? It is here that one addresses biological limits to human growth. Modern history has recorded Robert Wadlow as the tallest, at about 8 feet 11 inches, with a problem in his system known as gigantism. This made his body manufacture excess growth hormone. While fantastically tall as this may sound, it had some serious health complications, like weak bones and problems with his joints, giving way to his eventual death at 22 years old. Scientists all agree that the human body is simply not designed to support heights much over 9 feet. As an individual grows taller, bones, muscles, and the cardiovascular system are increasingly stressed. Beyond a certain point, the body can no longer function effectively. This is one reason why people suffering from gigantism have so many serious health problems, such as heart problems, deterioration of the joints, and early death. But humans aren't really capable of much over the height of 9 feet without dire consequences. How then would Nephilim or Goliath have reached such incredible height as described in those various ancient texts? One idea advanced is that these giants were not all human, but rather a hybrid species, comprising part human but also part divine or supernatural. This could explain their ability to grow to such massive sizes without suffering the same limitations as ordinary humans. Some scholars believe that because of the biological limitations in the growth of humans, it might be an exaggeration for symbolic purposes if the Nephilim were described as giant in size. Size was sometimes equated with power and influence in ancient cultures. Therefore, the use of the term giant to describe the Nephilim can be viewed as a way of emphasizing their dominant position over humanity. Indeed, in nearly all ancient mythologies, giants are imagined to be larger-than-life representatives of the forces of chaos, destruction, or divine punishment. Such close relevance can be interpreted from the depicting of the Nephilim as giants in the Bible, with a function of agents of corruption and a rebellion against God. Their great size would make them physically and spiritually formidable opponents. The last but not least role of giants in history has been representation of the dark side of human nature: pride, greed, and the lust for power. In the case of the Nephilim, their size could have acted to metaphorically suggest the corruption that they brought into the world. This implication is furthered by the fact that their times on earth were those of great wickedness, which finally led to the Great Flood. In turn, portraying the Nephilim as giants would imply a warning by the biblical authors for the readers against pride and opposition to the power of the gods. Their gigantic height would have been a view into enormous strength they possessed, into the devastation it brought into the world. Why haven't we found any archaeological evidence of giants? Admittedly, though stories of giants are replete in ancient texts, no physical evidence of their skeleton remains has been unearthed to date. So where are the remains of the Nephilim, and where is the archaeological proof of these cosmic offspring? It could be that the Nephilim were not literal giants, but rather symbolic of the giants, great rulers or warriors. If the Nephilim were metaphorical and not literal, then we would have no reason to find any physical remains of such a race. Another theory is that remains of the Nephilim would have been lost or destroyed through such a long time. The Great Flood, which is supposed to take away most of humankind, would have buried or washed off all proofs of its existence. Besides, the decay by nature within thousands of years could render any remains unrecognizable. This is further reaffirmed by some of the researchers who say that the remains of the Nephilim were further destroyed intentionally by the later civilizations for religious or ritual reasons. Many ancient cultures used to eliminate the remains of enemies or fallen warriors in order not to let their spirits return. This can be one of the cases for which remains of Nephilim have not been traced despite their importance in biblical and ancient history. Cross-cultural comparisons giants in other ancient texts. The Bible is not alone among ancient texts for referring to giants. As a matter of fact, most cultures from across the world have stories of gigantic beings roaming the earth in some far-off past. Many of them share a few of the same motifs, like giants being symbols of chaos, destruction, or divine judgment. The Shasu of ancient Egypt were nomads who, in artwork, were sometimes depicted as giants with faces that were terrifying and bearded. Indeed, in Greek mythology, the Titans were huge creatures that fought for the universe against the gods of Olympus. Like the Nephilim, they were usually associated with chaos and destruction. Within Norse mythology, these giants are either known as Jotnar or frost giants, residing among the untamed forces of nature. These beings were always in conflict with the gods and were defeated once and for all in a cataclysmic battle called Ragnarok. Similar to the Nephilim, frost giants were enemies of the divine, symbols of the destructive nature of nature and what takes place when one rebels against the gods. While diverging in details, all these stories shared one thing in common: giants as mighty, usually malevolent beings who epitomize the darker sides of human nature and the universe. Be they Nephilim, Titans, or frost giants, their towering figure continued to capture our imagination and warn us against the perils of unbridled power. The Nephilim, from ancient legacy to modern interpretations and conspiracy theories. Even up to this day, the Nephilim continues to stir curiosity and debate. While most scholars view the Nephilim as figurative or a product of ancient myth, some believe that these giants actually existed and roamed on Earth many thousands of years ago. Some researchers and conspiracy theorists suggest that the Nephilim were not just giants but evidence of ancient alien contact. According to this theory, the sons of God mentioned in Genesis were actually extraterrestrial beings who descended to Earth and mated with human women, creating a hybrid race of giants. The idea of giants and hybrid beings has also found its way into popular culture, with movies, books, and video games drawing heavily on the concept of the Nephilim and other ancient giants. From movies like Clash of the Titans to video games like Shadow of the Colossus, the idea of towering beings with incredible power continues to captivate audiences worldwide. Whether as figures of myth, symbols of divine punishment, or evidence of ancient alien contact, the Nephilim have left a lasting legacy that continues to influence both scholarly research and popular imagination. Their towering presence serves as a reminder of our fascination with the unknown and the mysteries of human history. After examining the evidence from ancient texts, modern science, and cross-cultural comparisons, one thing is clear: the true height of the Nephilim remains a mystery. While some sources describe them as towering giants, others suggest they were more symbolic figures representing power, corruption, and divine punishment. So were the Nephilim giants who really existed, or were they myths passed down through generations? The truth is still shrouded in mystery, while the stories of these towering beings have surely left a dent in history and even continue to be debated to this very day. But here's the one question that we haven't answered yet. How did these giants survive the devastating flood that took almost everything living on Earth? Watch our next video for the rest of the story. How did the Nephilim giants survive the devastating flood? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share with friends. Let's keep unraveling these ancient mysteries.